come from the earth, or a phantom of night that hath no hollow, or one that lieth dead in the desert, or a ghost unburied, or a demon, or a ghoul. Whatever thou be, until thou art removed, thou shalt find here no water to drink. Thou shalt not stretch forth thy hand to our own. Into our house enter thou not. Through our fence break through thou not. We are protected, though we may be frightened. Our life you may not steal, though we may be scared to death.
Welcome to Scared to Death, Creeps, Peepers, Roberts, and Annabelles. I'm Dan.
Hello, Dan. I'm the Crystal Queen.
Hello, Crystal Queen. You were singing your little Crystal Queen song.
Well, yeah, we were trying to figure out which melody would be best for Crystal Queen. Is it A, ABBA's Dancing Queen, or B, Billy Ocean's Caribbean Queen, which also might be known as Caribbean Queen, because no one really knows what he's saying.
Caribbean Queen. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we're taking submissions.
So happy belated Valentine's Day.
But happy early Valentine's Day.
Happy early Valentine's Day as we record this. Happy belated as you hear this. So I hope you had
all the things, all the chocolate.
Chocolate, what we say? Chocolate, sex, flowers?
Chocolate, flowers, and sex.
Just a reminder to have chocolate, sex, and flowers.
Just a reminder to have chocolate sex.
Just have chocolate sex.
Just have flower sex. Have chocolate flowers.
Just a reminder.
That's what I was trying to say.
To eat chocolate flowers. A couple very quick announcements, and then a lot of horror for you. I'm looking forward to these stories today.
Don't call me names.
First, got a new vintage Halloween decoration-inspired tee in the Bad Magic store this week. Grim Reaper tee. Almost reminds me of an old WWF wrestling tee, kind of the layout design. So you can check it out. You can grab one at badmagicmerch.com. The best horror merch out there. I'm biased. Also, if you want to see a very different side of me than you see here, my Symphony of Insanity stand-up tour, back and running. You can go to dancummins.tv for ticket links to shows in Orlando, Charlotte, Oklahoma City, Atlanta, Missoula, Tempe, Raleigh, Chicago, Salt Lake City, and Davenport this spring.
And mostly people want to know when I'm going to be there.
And you will be at some of those dates.
I will be at some of those dates. We don't tell you. It's like a surprise.
This month's charity, again, is SEO, Sponsors for Educational Opportunity. SEO's mission is to create a more equitable society by closing the opportunity gap for young people from historically excluded communities. SEO annually serves 6,000 plus people across America through its various programs. SEO Scholars, an 8-year academic program that gets public high school students to and through college with a 90% graduation rate, and they have a lot more programs. And you can go to SEO-USA.org for more info. And we'll share how much we're donating next week. Bit of a transitional period with charity, as we'll also be giving monthly to our new scholarship fund that Lindsay is spearheading the creation of. And hopefully we'll have a name of that this next week, too.
I know. Well, we're debating. Should we take a vote on that, too?
I don't know.
It's a tricky thing.
And now for the stories. I have my standard 2 tales this week. What about you, Lulu?
Oh, my God, me too.
Oh, my God. We checked 2 stories.
No way.
What are the odds?
Who'd have thunk it?
Do you want me to tell my previous first or yours?
You can go first. Sure.
Okay. My first story, kind of a haunted doll story. It's set in a cute little part of Poughkeepsie, New York, New Hamburg. The story of the Lawson House. Did 2 local tragedies create a haunting? And did that haunting then manifest itself, for a time at least, in some doll-like objects I don't want to reveal until I tell the story?
Okay.
And then next we'll go to Argentina. Did an old feud of some sort between 2 cousins, 2 practitioners of a form of witchcraft, possibly practitioners of macumba or quimbanda, possibly lead to death and to a brief but intense haunting? The spirit world very much believed to be alive in these 2 religions in parts of South America, similar to voodoo and Santeria in the sense that they were born in Africa, then mixed with Catholicism, and the belief is strong in magic, curses, speaking with the dead, etc. in these faiths.
Okay. Is that how you went on a Uruguay deep dive?
That's how I got there, by looking into Argentina first and trying to get my head around this macumba and quimbanda.
Dan came home and was like, oh my God, so do you know, like, Uruguay is so beautiful and it's metropolitan and there's this, there. It's like, what is going on? Are you doing some topic on Uruguay? No.
Is it Uruguay or Uruguay? I can never remember. Is it Uruguay?
Uruguay?
I don't
know. Maybe.
I didn't look up the pronunciation.
Lord. Is this the new Appalachia?
Is it the new tomato?
Appalachia? Appalachia? Appalachia. You get it. Well, I also have 2 stories, which again, I know is very, very shocking. My first story I am into, it's a former service member, a veteran, and not only is this person super skeptical, which makes it an even more interesting tale, but then he and their family like fight back against it and they win, which
cool.
I kind of love because it's so rare that we have that kind of tale.
Yeah.
And then for the second half, I will give you one guess where we're going. Just one guess.
Uruguay.
Where do I love to go?
New Orleans.
Ohio.
Ohio, that's right.
And I just love like people get there like enough with the Ohio stories. Like, my God. What does it matter where the story takes place? But yeah, so a young couple is living in this apartment, like behind and above a bar. And late at night when the bar is closed, they hear things and they
Interesting.
go on a little ghost hunting tour. And it's just kind of fascinating the way that they don't see anything in the moment of the ghost hunt, but upon further investigation and reviewing the material afterwards, it's like, oh my God.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, because you just like, I just like that because if you were in a ghost hunt or like on a ghost hunt, you're like, oh, I want to hear something right now. That's what you would say. I would say like, please don't let us hear anything right now. So I would love to review the footage and be like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't hear that while we were on the ghost hunt.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
You'd be disappointed. I'd be happy.
And that is creepy in its own way. Very creepy, like to find out later that those things were around you.
Oh yeah, today I got a voicemail. You cannot hear anything, literally nothing, but the transcription says hello, 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 hello. Like that's what's written out. I'm like,
that's creepy.
Why?
Creepy spam.
I know. I don't like it. So ever since we talked about Annalise Michelle, things have been a little uncomfortable.
You ready now for a little baby horror story?
Yeah.
And it's not a baby in terms of being about a baby as you get your socks out. Not a horror story for babies because that's not scary.
These are my Valentine's Day socks. I think
those are cute.
Yeah, they're little baby socks, and they have hearts and X's and O's. I don't know if you can really tell that, but they're so cute.
They are very cute.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is just not a very long story. Plenty of time to settle into it too. We've covered plenty of haunted house stories here on Scared to Death. They're some of my favorites. Haunted houses, haunted hotels. Not sure about the creeps and peepers who listen, but I could truly tell those stories every week and never get tired of them. Love those settings. We've told many stories of ghostly, spectral inhabitants, shadowy figures at the foot of a bed, coming down a hallway, disembodied voices, unexplained footsteps, spooky things that are hard to explain that may or may not exist, things you can't touch, things you can often only catch the briefest glimpse of, if you can even see them at all. Spooks like these leave most wondering if their mind was playing tricks on them. Was that something they actually saw? Was it real or just a figment of their imagination? More rare are the stories of entities that take on a tangible physical form, like a haunted doll. You know, what would be scarier? Encountering an entity with some ethereal shape that can't be touched, such as a shadow person, or encountering an entity that can be touched, and thus one that can also touch you, like a doll?
Don't touch me.
If you think the doll would be less scary, is it because of its size? Does it seem less dangerous because it's not very big? What about a much bigger doll then? One human-sized? We've covered just a couple of stories where this has come up. What if you were to encounter several human-sized dolls that looked human, like mannequins that seemed alive somehow, possessed? That's the focus of my first story here today. Time now for the tale of the Lawson House. Located around 80 miles north of New York City, the Lawson House was built over 150 years ago in the quaint neighborhood of New Hamburg, a census-designated place inside the city limits of Poughkeepsie that was once its own proper town. The Lawson family had deep roots in the town of New Hamburg in the 19th century, when it became a busy river port in the mid-1800s as the entire Hudson River Valley area boomed with economic activity. Wealthy New York citizens had begun moving up north along the river to build their summer homes, bolstering local businesses. John Lawson, a descendant of one of the region's first colonial families, built a lovely home in New Hamburg's Main Street Historic District in 1845. One of the town's oldest remaining residences today, the home was described as a center hall house with center cross gable, bracketed cornice, corbelled chimneys, and arched top windows in its nomination to the National Register of Historic Places in 1987. Shortly after the construction of the John Lawson House, the New Hamburg Railroad Station opened nearby, and about 20 years later, it would be the site of a tragic accident. And now some think that part of the darkness they believe surrounds the Lawson House comes directly from this accident. During the cold winter evening of February 6, 1871, a 25-car freight train carrying oil was traveling from the Albany area southbound towards New Hamburg on the Hudson River Railroad line. Meanwhile, another train carrying passengers had departed New York City northbound for Albany. After the freight train passed through a tunnel near New Hamburg, a station switchman noticed a broken axle, causing sparks to fly out under an oil car in the middle of the train. Eventually, the axle disengaged, resulting in the car derailing and flipping over onto the northbound track as that passenger train from New York City approached. The freight train's engineer, thinking fast, managed to stop his train, then ran across the tracks with the flagman, holding red lights to warn the passenger train to also stop, but they wouldn't get the message in time. The passenger train's engineer saw the warning lights, and it was clear to witnesses he attempted to stop, but big trains, carrying a lot of weight, they just create too much momentum to quickly come to a halt, and he ultimately couldn't slow down quickly enough. The passenger train slammed into the damaged tank car containing thousands of gallons of oil, and a fiery explosion engulfed the train in flames. Survivors were later pulled from the wreckage, but a total of 22 people burned to death. And they all died about 200 feet away from the John Lawson House. And then more tragedy would follow 6 years later, more flames. A major fire ignited in the village by the riverside around 9 p.m. May 3, 1877, destroying 7 structures directly surrounding the John Lawson House. One eyewitness interviewed by a local news reporter said, Frank Luster, a resident, tried in vain to stamp out the fire which had been spread to the store. The kerosene room caught fire. Suddenly there was a violent explosion. Uncontrollable flames raced through the building. A general alarm was sounded. The townspeople brought buckets of water to douse the flames, but the fire only spread further. A rider was sent on horseback to fetch the fire department in the nearby village of Wappingers Falls, 2 miles away, and while they rode, the fire chewed up one structure after another, leaving only the bones of many now charred-out buildings behind. No one ever figured out how the fire started, but a lot of people did find it odd that while just about every building around it burned down to almost nothing, the John Lawson House survived the blaze unscathed. Then, many years later, after whispers that the John Lawson House had been haunted ever since that fire, the Mannequins started appearing. No one seems to remember when they first showed up. Somewhere around 20 or 30 years ago, when the Mannequins first appeared on the John Lawson House's front porch, no one seemed to know who even owned the home or if anyone lived there. Life-size, doll-like figures were not only witnessed, they were rumored to change positions throughout the day, and they always seemed to be facing the direction of the 1871 train accident. Then a scarier rumor began to spread that the Mannequins were possessed by the spirits of the dead, particularly those who died in either that 1871 train accident or in the 1877 fire. To make matters eerier, they would appear wearing vintage-style clothing with accessories such as hats and long white gloves. Sometimes they were posed holding certain items, including books and an empty bird cage. A few locals reportedly put the property under surveillance, and they never saw anyone coming and going or changing the Mannequins' positions. But their positions changed anyways. And even if somebody was doing this, why were they doing it? Why would someone go through all the trouble of that in the first place? Day after day, week after week, month after month. Despite knowing that it was seemingly impossible, some people still wondered, were the Mannequins moving all on their own? And somehow, even though the Mannequins didn't have much in the way of facial features, people also reported seeing the Mannequins' expressions change. Their eyes would suddenly change direction, as though they were looking around, or as though they were watching you walk or drive by. Some people even swore they saw tears running down some of their cheeks. For years, people in the area speculated and tried to figure out what was going on at the John Lawson House. And while they wondered, the Mannequins kept moving. They kept staring at passerbys with their cold, dead eyes. Finally, one day in 2016, the Mannequins at 9A Main Street simply disappeared.
What?
And they haven't been seen since. To this day, no one seems to know for sure why the Mannequins ever showed up in the first place, why their appearances would change, or if they will ever return to haunt the John Lawson House of New Hamburg, New York.
That is so weird.
It's just a weird story.
It is very creepy.
I have pictures.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So we'll start with the recent photo of the John Lawson House after the Mannequins left. It's a very normal-looking house now.
That's exactly what I pictured when you were describing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know my architectural terms.
Do. Some of the Mannequins, once seen on the porch, are in this next picture.
What?
Here's just a different photo of Mannequins on the porch. I think this one's a little
she had
closer
on,
up.
nylons and shoes, And how long did this go on for?
Years and years. There's no specific, because no one remembers exactly when they first showed up, but they stopped showing up in 2016.
Where was Banksy?
And then this is what the house looked like when the mannequins first started showing up. So this is before,
Oh my God, that'd be so creepy. This sort of beaten up house. Because I don't want to say it's dilapidated because it's actually not.
Yeah, the bones are really good. It just needs a paint job and stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm,
Oh
in that
my
photo.
God.
And seeing that at night.
No way.
Yeah, it definitely weirded out the neighbors.
I don't know. That's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. A lot of work to, let's just say it was humans behind it.
Right.
To collect mannequins. Mannequins are not cheap. Those,
Yeah.
and it's not like those were like beat up, old, right? I mean, the mannequins
Yeah.
themselves look like they were in pretty good shape.
Right.
So you're purchasing mannequins, you're dressing them, which is no small feat. It's a real pain in the butt. You're putting nylons on them, shoes, wigs, props.
Yeah.
And then you're moving them? Mm-hmm. The only way I would really feel like it was human force behind it is if the house was for sale, like if somebody, if a couple owned it and there was a divorce, or somebody wanted it and they didn't want this person to get it, like some kind of turmoil around the sale of the house or the purchase of the house or who owns it, like some sort of weird vendetta against the people who live there, but no one was living there at the time.
I don't know that for certain. That was a speculation.
Okay.
There's a variety of rumors. I didn't look into property records.
Sure.
But yeah, some think that there was like a theater owner who lived there, and maybe they were doing it. But then there's other people who say that they never saw anything. Like there was comments from locals under some of the articles.
Yes.
Speculating all kinds of different things.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I think we should put mannequins in our front yard.
It is so creepy.
So very creepy. But we could do it.
Ooh, we could have it in the treehouse. There could be mannequins that just show up on that little porch of the treehouse and looking out the treehouse windows.
The problem with that is that one of us is going to forget that we've done that. And it's likely me. And I'll be home alone and I will lose my mind. I will be on the phone with the police that there is someone. Excuse me, officer, could you please come to blah, 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 1234 Main Street? There's a person in my tree fort. Excuse me, ma'am, what?
Yeek.
But since we don't really care for our neighbors behind us, once again.
Ooh, yeah, we could just have one of the mannequins looking out, because there's a window facing them.
I know.
So we just put a little mannequin face, like, so when they're out in their yard, there's a little face in the window looking down at them.
Oh,
I'm into that.
That'd be so fun.
That would be fun.
But then I think we also have to tell our neighbors on the one side of us that have kids in case they see it. I don't want to freak out their kids. No way. I like those neighbors. One.
Yeah.
Two, they have 3 small children, and that's a lot of lost sleep for mom and dad.
That's fair.
so I say no, but oh man, Joe has a good house that we could put mannequins in, like in his yard. What do you think, Joe?
I'm down. Why not?
So
little heads
fun.
peeking over that fence.
Yes.
Staring at the street.
Oh, and that's a busy, like, there's enough traffic over there.
Yeah.
Get Ezra to build little motors that'll make the heads go up and down.
Perfect.
And look left and right.
Oh my God, I would love it so much. Oh, what a weird thing.
Mm-hmm. Super weird.
And the Lawson family, okay, and this is so random, but like, so usually they have like, a lot of money in those days. Like what was to like have that kind of house?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Do we know?
Yeah.
Well, in my mind, I decided that they, we have a hat from your grandpa Ward that was like a camo hat with like the fluffy ears, and it says Lawson on it, like some sort of logo. I think it's some sort of
I did not.
construction thing, or
I don't know.
But that's what I decided. So in my mind, this guy was like some construction dude.
Okay.
Had a whole backstory for John Lawson.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't even know what he was into.
Do you want to trade images of haunted mannequins for visions of black magic and angry spirits?
I don't know which is more terrifying. Creepy mannequins or the unknown?
No setup for this one. Just going to jump right in. So are you ready?
I was born ready.
Okay. Just going to tell the tale as the person claiming it happened has posted it. Time now for the tale of Camilla's curse. I live in Parana, a small city in Argentina where the story I will share took place. Small enough that I don't want to share my name due to the chance that someone might hear of it and know me. I don't want them to think I'm crazy or to ask me questions about it. That might be worse. Where I come from, superstition is common, but mostly in the older generations. Like most of my friends growing up, I used to find it all embarrassing. My mother and grandmother would talk of hauntings, witches, black and white magic, or devotion to Argentinian saints such as are often associated with the occult here, such as El Gachito Gil, a once real-life figure who is Argentina's Robin Hood of a sort, a folk saint, My grandmother would often, would once make offerings to Saint Gachito for help with money, health, good fortune, all kinds of things. And then there was San La Muerte, Saint Death. The real-life Gachito Gil was, according to my mother, a patron of this saint, and so was my grandmother. She would make offerings to the saint for protection from all sorts of things, protection from an unnatural death, protection from curses, witchcraft, and I think she believed that certain rituals and offerings made to this saint could also bring people harm, maybe death. I wonder how much she dabbled in the dark side of all this. I never used to make any offerings to these saints or any others myself. Maybe I should have. I do now. I used to be certain that all of this was nonsense, fairy tales and spooky stories to scare children, but nothing more. Now I'm not sure. Now I'm certain something else is out there. I've seen it. I still don't know what it all means in the grand scheme of things, but I know we are not alone. For me, my journey from hardcore skeptic to paranormal believer and someone who is now afraid of certain forces that walk amongst us, it began not long after my grandmother's cousin, Camilla, came to stay with us when I was 19. My grandmother never got along very well with Camilla, but now Camilla was in a bad way. She had never married. She had lived alone for most of her long life, had hurt her back, it had left her without a job for many years, put her into debt, and she was never able to climb out of that debt once she was healthy again. She'd lost her last job almost a year earlier, and she was worried about getting evicted from her apartment. And when my grandfather got very sick, my grandmother needed help to care for him, and she couldn't afford a full-time nurse. She was still working. So was everyone else she loved who would have been able to help Grandpa, including me. So she ended up swallowing her pride and reaching out to Camilla, thinking that maybe they could help each other and perhaps move past whatever had happened between them so many years earlier. Camilla agreed, moved in with my grandparents in order to help take care of my grandfather. I wonder now, looking back, if she was overjoyed at the opportunity to be invited into my grandmother's home to do what I think she did. This is where everything seemed to go wrong. Whatever had been bothering them for many years, it didn't just go away when she moved in. It was clear that they still hated each other. The situation was not ideal. Making things worse, the space Camilla shared with my grandparents was small, very small, for people who hated each other. The house they lived in was just 1/3 of the much bigger house that my grandparents used to live in. After the children had all left home, when money was tight one year, they divided their house into 3 units. My grandparents lived in one, rented out the other units to strangers for a while. But then some of their kids had money troubles too, and so they helped them out. They were such good people. Soon my aunt and her family lived in 1 unit, and then not long after, my mother and I lived in the 3rd unit. My father used to live with us as well, but he passed away several years before all this took place, a heart attack at work. The part we lived in used to be a garden, a patio, and a little room where my grandparents stored things. And before they stored things in that room, and I didn't know this until after all of this started happening, my grandmother used to practice her brujeria there, her witchcraft, back before she became a Christian after my grandpa converted her. My mother said that for a while my grandmother practiced something called macumba or kumbanda. I didn't know much about this stuff. It's all very secretive. It's kind of like voodoo. Lots of secret rituals, lots of dealing with spirits of death, sometimes evil spirits. What I do know about, Grandma would do things like read tarot cards and do fortune telling for people. She would also try and make contact with the other side, with the dead. Supposedly, she did make contact with the dead many times. One way she'd do this was to play El Juego de la Copa, the cup game. To play this game, you need a piece of cardboard or a large piece of paper, a marker or a pen, and of course a cup. You write on the cardboard or sheet all the letters of the alphabet, the numbers from 0 to 9, and the words yes, no, and goodbye. It's a Ouija board that you build yourself. Instead of a planchette, each person playing the cup game, you're never supposed to play it alone, puts an index finger on the cup, which you place upside down on the paper or the cardboard. You ask whatever spirit you're trying to contact questions, and if they answer, they do so by moving the cup to the appropriate letter or word. My grandmother swore she contacted many spirits this way, not all of them friendly. The room she did all of this in, that room had been converted into 2 bedrooms. One was now my mother's, and the other was mine. Going back now to when my grandfather was dying, my grandmother's cousin Camilla wasn't much of a nurse. Right after she came to stay with my grandmother, my grandfather's health condition deteriorated rapidly, and I thought she had something to do with it. I think she had everything to do with it now. My mother and grandmother were also convinced she did. Days after my grandfather died, my uncle said he found a work of brujeria under the bed he died in. A small statue of Saint Expeditus was found with its head cut off. The carcass of a black toad was found with its mouth sewn shut. Ugh! Inside its mouth was some of my grandfather's hair, a small piece of paper with his name written on it. The paper looked like it had blood on it too. And there were other strange little items, a picture of my grandfather, the ashes of something that had been burnt. My uncle told me somebody placed a death curse on him. He wondered if it was Camilla. Camilla did act strangely after his death. She didn't seem to grieve. She seemed happy. And she and my grandmother, now they hated each other more than ever. Camilla and my grandmother got into a loud fight one night right around when my uncle told me all this. My mother and I could hear them yelling through the walls, but couldn't make out all the words. My mom heard enough to become convinced, though, that the fight had something to do with my grandfather's death. And it was about what was found under his bed. And that it also had to do with whatever happened between the two of them many years earlier, something involving witchcraft. One thing I did make out was my grandma saying, "You'll die for this." Camilla was moved out by the time we awoke the next morning. She went to stay with other relatives. And then just a few weeks later, Camilla did die. She died in her sleep, just like my grandfather had. I asked my uncle if anything was found under her bed as well, and he said yes. And a devoted Catholic man, he made the sign of the cross above his chest when he said that, and a lot of the blood seemed to leave his face. He looked scared. Just days after Camilla died, that's when things started to get very strange and scary around our house. It started with me waking up in the middle of the night to the slamming of my bedroom door. It was so loud it startled me into popping up and sitting bolt upright on my bed. I found myself now facing the door, and right before my eyes, I watched the door slowly open, which means someone or something had to first turn the door handle. And then it didn't just swing open like a breeze had caught it. It slowly opened, deliberately, like someone on the other side of the door was holding the handle. And then it stopped abruptly before slamming again like someone was doing it. I felt scared while I watched this. I knew right away that what I was seeing was not natural. I sat in bed still as a statue, staring at this door. And then it started to swing back and forth, just barely, slowly. It would open a few inches wider, then move a few inches towards closing. Over and over, back and forth. I just sat there in the dark, not making a sound, not moving a muscle, and then BAM! It slammed so hard I thought it was going to shatter. I screamed. A cross on the wall I'd had since I was a kid was knocked to the ground, and then it felt like a cool breeze passed through the room, through me, and my skin broke out in goosebumps. And then it was all over. My mother, the slamming door, and my scream had woken her. She ran into my room a moment later to ask what had happened. When I told her, she looked as scared as I felt. She muttered a small prayer while she clutched the cross necklace she always wore. She said it must have just been the wind, but she didn't believe that, and neither did I. But it still felt good to hear it. We both wanted to believe it. Then she came over to me, kissed the top of my head, told me to go back to bed, and then went to bed herself. Nothing else happened that night that I know of, but neither one of us went back to sleep, I don't think. The next day, we both went to work in the morning, and we had dinner with Grandma that night. When she said she'd heard some commotion the night before, I told her what had happened, and she looked concerned, very concerned. But she didn't say anything, just shook her head from side to side a bit and fell silent. Nothing else happened that night or the next night. I was starting to think it might have truly been just some random breeze I felt, or at least an isolated incident. But then the next night I had terrible dreams. I can't remember what they were even about. I just remember feeling afraid, scared I was going to die, and waking up terrified. And when I woke up, I heard whispering. It was coming from towards the door. When I looked in that direction, just for a second, I could have sworn I saw a dark, shadowy human shape crouched down on the floor.
Oh.
But it disappeared quickly. And I would have thought it was nothing more than my imagination, but then the cross that had fallen to the floor a few nights before, a crucifixion cross with Jesus hanging upon it, suddenly flew off the wall, landing on the floor. It didn't fly completely across the room or anything, but it did fall too far from the wall, just enough where it didn't make sense. Nothing truly just falling would land 3 or 4 feet away like that. It's not possible. This scared me, but I didn't scream. I sat up in bed again, waiting for something else to happen. For a few moments, I now felt a presence in the room with me. The distinct feeling of not being alone. But then that feeling went away. So I got up, put the cross back on the wall, and it would stay there the rest of the night. I didn't wake my mom up. I thought about it, but I didn't want to scare her. And then after an hour or so of laying there waiting for something terrible to happen, something more terrifying, I fell back asleep. I was a little rattled the next day, but I didn't tell anyone about it. I just hoped, like the door opening and slamming on its own a few nights earlier, that it wouldn't happen again. I tried to tell myself it could still be explained somehow. But then the following night, something happened that could not be explained. After another dinner with my mother and grandma, one where my grandmother asked me if anything had happened the night before, and I lied and said no, and was convinced she knew I was lying, I watched a show on my computer in my room before I fell asleep. I usually watched horror, but I was too scared, went with a comedy. My room felt odd that night. I don't know how else to explain it. The air just felt different. And I got that feeling that I wasn't alone again. I wondered if I was just still bothered by the slamming door, the cross coming off the wall. I laid down, pulled the blankets up tight around my chin, forced my eyes shut even though part of me wanted to look around my room for something that might be watching me, and soon I'd fallen asleep. And then the cross popped off the wall again and woke me up. For a third time now, I was sitting up in bed in the dark staring towards the door, and then I could just barely see it at first. I watched the crucifix start to vibrate. Very subtle at first, then it started to shake harder and harder. And then the door to my room violently swung open. But again, despite opening so quickly, it stopped before it knocked into the wall, like someone was holding onto the door handle. I was so startled, I didn't even scream. I was frozen again, a silent statue, my eyes opened as wide as they could be. And then the shaking crucifix shot out of my room, past the open door, sliding down the hallway at such a fast speed. I lost sight of it in the darkness, then heard it slam into something in the kitchen. Still, I was silent, still frozen. Bam! The door slammed back shut, and now I screamed. And as I screamed, the coldest wave of air washed over me. And when it did, I now saw the shadowy figure of a person standing between my bed and the door. I knew this was the person who had been watching me. And then I heard them laugh, a horrible laugh, and a familiar one. Just before this spirit vanished, clear as day, I saw that it had Camilla's face, and I screamed louder. I screamed loud enough to wake up not just my mother, but my grandmother. Soon they were both in my room, and I was telling them everything. My grandmother now asked my mother for something large to write on. My mom found a large box, flattened it. My grandmother had her write all the letters of the alphabet,
God.
the numbers 0 through 9, the words yes, no, goodbye. Soon grandmother came back with leaves, crystals, what looked like fingernail clippings, a tooth, all sorts of strange stuff. She clearly remembered her old ways before she left her brujeria behind for my grandfather. She had a cup as well, and she and my mother sat down and played the cup game in front of me. "Who are you that terrorizes my granddaughter?" my grandmother demanded of the air around her. And then she spoke in some language I'd never heard before. And when she did this, the cup moved. It spelled out Camilla. "What do you want from her?" my grandmother again demanded. And the cup spelled death and started to spell it again. Now my room got very, very cold. At this point, my mother cried out, removed her finger from the cup like it had badly shocked her. And she had what looked like some sort of seizure. Her body started to convulse. Instead of helping her, my grandmother began to arrange the items she brought in a very specific way around a small statue of San La Muerta, Saint Death. I watched, paralyzed with fear. Grandmother chanted in some language I didn't know again. While she chanted, I now heard loud footsteps, stomps coming towards us from down the hall. A dark, shadowy figure stood just outside my room. Now my mother stopped convulsing and sat up and got face to face with my grandmother, but her face didn't look like my mother's. And she spoke in Camilla's voice. She screamed in Spanish, "I'll take everyone from you, you witch!" My grandmother barely reacted. She just kept chanting louder and louder. She lit some candles she brought and placed them next to other items she brought. She used one of the burning candles to light dried leaves and herbs, put them on fire and placed them in the bowl. She used a knife to draw blood from her wrist, bled into the fire, still chanting louder and louder. And then my mother collapsed and I heard the shadow in the hall scream. It felt like some kind of bomb went off. A blast of energy knocked me back, knocked shelves off the wall, cracked my window. Soon my aunt and uncle were running over from their unit on the other side of my grandmother's unit. My mom became herself again, and now my grandmother just said, "Now she stays forever in the land of the dead." And then Grandma looked at me and told me I would be safe and that it was all over. And she looked exhausted. She was sweaty. She said she needed to lie down. My grandmother and I then helped her to her bed. We offered to stay the night with her, but she told us she didn't need us to do that. When my mother insisted, she grabbed my mom's arm and said so firmly, staring straight into her eyes, "No, go home. You must go home." Reluctantly, we did. We both slept in the same bed that night, like back when I was a little girl. And by the time we woke up the next morning, my grandmother was dead. Like her husband, like Camilla, she had died in her sleep. And that was 6 months ago. Nothing has happened since. I still don't know what she was chanting. My mother says she doesn't either, but I don't believe her. Every day since that night, my mother has left an offering in front of the little statue of San La Muerta my grandma brought over that night, and most days I do as well. The saint now stands guard in a little altar area in the living room, along with the figures of Gachito Gil and the other saints. My mom has made me promise to never move or disrespect them, and I won't. I don't know what I believe in anymore, but I do believe in something. I know that whatever my grandmother said she had something to do with these saints, my mom makes these offerings to, and that one of them must have somehow saved us from Camilla's spirit. I wish I didn't believe in all of this, or that I would have had at least experienced the other side in a different way. I think my grandmother saved my life that night. I believe she sacrificed her own life to end some kind of blood curse. I haven't told any of my friends about any of this. I know they wouldn't understand. My friends may still think that magic and saints and spirits and such that the older generation still believe in is nothing more than superstition, but I don't. I don't know exactly what it all is, but I will forever believe now that some of the old beliefs are very real and very dangerous.
That was great.
Yeek.
Terrifying. I had never heard of the Ouija board used in like the same way, but called a different thing.
I hadn't either. I had not
The
heard of
cup
the cup game. I can't remember his El Huego. I have to look it up again.
What was the cup game?
Yeah, but the cup game. Yeah, just Spanish for the cup game. But I do have pictures, and I found pictures, a picture of these like build your own kind of Ouija board online.
Okay.
But the first one is this is just Piranha. This is a picture of the Cathedral of Piranha. So that's that town in Argentina.
It's so pretty.
Pretty.
It reminds me of that church around like the center square in Peru, in Lima, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of these old Catholic churches down there are beautiful.
Yeah.
This next one's a little Gachito Gil figurine.
I love his name, Gachito Gil.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of pictures.
Is he the
online.
guy on the left?
He's the guy on the left. He's like the Robin Hood figure, and then the guy on the right. Well, one of them, the closest one, that's San La Muerte. That's Saint Death.
What's his name? Gil, our buddy Gil.
Yeah.
What's he holding in his hands? Do you know?
I don't know.
I can't tell. Like from here, I mean, just a tiny little statue. It looks like some sort of offering or whatnot.
Yeah, but I know
like he's holding something by its tail.
He's very popular in Argentina. And then
we got to get some of him.
This next one's a shrine for San La Muerte, and I guess that's what I said. I think I said altar earlier. I probably said I said shrine. Well, whatever. It's what they said.
Shrine,
Translation
altar
problems
are very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think about it in the Catholic sense, like a shrine and an altar. Like if I was in a shrine to Mary or any other saint, there is an altar usually inside the shrine. Yeah. So it's all.
I think it was I think whoever posted that, it wasn't probably English, not their first language. So there was some funky verbiage sometimes.
Yeah. Is there more? Do you have more photos?
Oh, yeah. So that was, did I just show you this? Oh, yeah. Then there's occult items associated with Macumba. So this is what I imagine, like something under the bed. Not necessarily this, but there's all kinds of like interesting. It's very secretive.
I do see crystals.
Yeah, it's very secretive and hard to get details online about this. But it's it's kind of practiced more underground, it seems.
Okay, so maybe it's more of something that's handed down verbally.
Yeah, just like voodoo and like Santeria. A lot of them. A lot of it is like verbal and stuff. There's not like a core. There's not like a Bible equivalent.
Is the reasoning behind that like they don't want it to be appropriated by other people? Or
well, it's the history. The syncretic, it came out of slavery.
Yeah.
And so they had to hide it for so long. And then I don't know why nothing was written on afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, could just be tradition. Could just be like...
I think it comes from an oral tradition, like African religion's oral tradition. So I don't think there was ever a core text.
Right, but I'm saying like now somebody could...
And I think they do, but it's like disagreed upon. That's the trouble with a lot of those, is like you can find a book that's like, this is how you do it. But then somebody else will be like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Because everybody learns it a little bit different way.
Well, and isn't that just religion in general?
True.
That I think that you could say that across all religion.
Yeah, that's true. This next one is that cup game. This is just somebody's version where they actually cut out stuff and put it on the floor. Oh. And you see the glass kind of cup there in the middle.
Yeah. Okay, I just want you to know that in my mind, I'm such an ass. When you were describing the cup game in the beginning, I don't know why, but I decided it was a solo cup. And I was like, how would you be able to see the letters? Is Dan gonna say, and then they cut off the bottom so they can... I got weirdly obsessed with that detail.
Funny.
Yeah, my brain would not let it go. I'm like, how do you know what it's saying?
Oh,
it was making me crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I definitely knew that the grandma was gonna die. After you said, when you were reading the story and grandma went to bed that night and wouldn't let her daughter and her granddaughter stay with her, I was like, oh, she for sure, made a deal with Camila.
Or with some saint or something.
I think it was like Camila / kind of like take me instead and this will satisfy your bloodthirst or whatever. And like that's the end of it. But weird things like, okay, going back to the grandfather, the black toad with its mouth sewn shut with like his hair inside of it. That is so uber specific and disgusting.
I looked a little further. I was just like, it got me curious looking around. And that black toad with the mouth sewn shut, that is like a fairly common ingredients. I don't know what you call it. Like part of certain rituals.
Well, you know how I feel about frogs.
Oh yeah.
So I like somebody having to like catch it, kill it,
put something in its mouth, sew its mouth shut.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my
Yeah.
god! I was losing my mind, just like holding the bile down in the back of my throat. Mm-hmm. Frogs freak me out so much.
They do. Yeah.
They really do. They're so unpredictable.
Are they?
They might jump on you, and then they're like slimy and bumpy and gross, and they might.
But they're not that slimy.
That makes it worse. I don't want it's somehow like, then it has like dry, rough, bumpy skin.
No.
I just hate them so much.
I know, it's just so funny because you usually love little cute little animals, and I think frogs are so cute.
They're not fucking cute.
But it's the one, you really don't like.
No, for sure. Hardcore against them. Actually, I saw, this is so sad. I saw in the news over the weekend, there was a big nor'easter that came through and, pummeled the Northeast.
Yeah.
And it caused low temperatures to hit like all the way down into Florida.
Or no, did it kill some frogs?
Well, I wish it did. No, this woman like woke up to like frozen iguanas all over her yard.
That's weird.
Yeah, because they thaw out in the sun, and the sun was like, it was so cold for their. It's like, that is also a nightmare for me.
Man, did it kill them, or did they somehow?
I didn't really want to read the article.
Yeah.
It was like too like bleh for me.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, and then so then when Grandma came over and they were going to do their tradition, like, this is like a double-edged sword. I sometimes think like, oh, I wish I knew more about like, okay, if I collect like your toenail clippings and like this or whatever, and like, I could do all these things. But then also, I don't think I really want to know. I don't want to like be like making witch's brew. But when she was talking about all the weird things that her grandma laid out, I'm like, but maybe I should know. What if I ever need to practice this and protect us? I just might need to protect us because. Before I dive into my stories, in the January bonus episode on Patreon, we released like the first ever, our test episode that lives nowhere except like on our server. And the Annalise, one of the topics was Annalise Michelle and her possession and what happened there and yada, yada, yada. And ever since we did that episode, our room has been so heavy and so dark. I've been waking up in the middle of the night with these crazy cough attacks.
You have.
It's been wild where I just wake up like last night I really thought I was dying. I like woke up, I was like
I know, she freaked me out. Yeah.
It's terrifying. Yeah. I don't know what it is. So that's scary. And then our room feels dark. Like it hasn't I need to cleanse the house because it hasn't felt that icky in a long time, and I won't look in our mirror at night. Like I've all of a sudden just feel really uncomfortable.
Ever since we listened to that one again.
So I might need some of your hair, a toad. I don't know.
Don't accidentally kill me or something. They'll give me some weird death curse that you don't even know about.
True. That's what I'm saying. Like, should I educate myself on it or should I just like wing it?
Wing it.
Wing it.
Let's see. What's the worst? What's the worst that could happen?
When are you going to cut your toenails?
I just had them cut yesterday.
Oh, shoot. I just had them cut yesterday. What are you, 90? I can't reach my toenails. I have to go to the toe clinic and get my toenails cut.
I do go to the pedicure place now for my toes because it's after so many years of mangling my own toes.
I know. Well, specifically that one.
Now let's let a professional handle it.
Now Kyler's got a bad toe.
I know.
It's pretty funny.
Yep. And I don't feel that bad for him because he gave me so much shit, no sympathy really for all my toe pain for years.
Yep.
And just mocked me. And now he has a nasty ass toe.
He's got skier's toe. Oh boy.
A bloody toe.
Yeah, I think he's going to lose that toenail.
Yeah.
I kind of hope he does. A little bit of payback. Do you have a cute squishy for Valentine's Day?
I do have a little red one. I have two of them actually.
Well, sexy devil.
Little sexy devil and a little sexy Layla.
Is she sexy?
No, that's probably weird to say that. I was just trying to extend that to Layla, but no, she's not sexy.
A lovely Layla.
She's cute.
She is so cute. I love her. Okay, well, are you ready to chat with a veteran about his own crazy story?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm pretty into it. Like, if we encountered something in our house, do you think you would really have the courage to really try and get rid of it?
It depends on what it was.
Well, you don't know what it is. That's part of the
Depends
problem.
on what it's doing.
Okay.
How intense the stuff is.
Like, where do you draw the line?
Like, between just, like, trying to fix it and just leaving? If it's, like, throwing things around the room, like a knife, or like if a knife got thrown around, and I'm like, oh, this thing could kill me. Bless you.
Thank you. I've been so sneezy.
If this thing could kill me, it's like doing things, interacting with the physical world in a violent way, then I might want to, like, bail and try and get, somebody to cleanse the house.
But you're not going to try to get rid of it. That's what I'm like.
I would just need help because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Right.
I would come like with a priest or a spiritualist or whoever. I would go around the house with them while they do their voodoo mumbo jumbo and yell at the spirits.
That felt disrespectful. Okay, mumbo jumbo. Well, let's see what.
Do their cleansing rituals.
I thought you were going to say do some exercise.
Do some exercise. Do your jumping jacks. And let's see what happens.
I just like have this vision of someone like.
Oh my gosh, a priest in the full priest garb doing jumping jacks.
Yes, but then also like exercising exorcism.
Ooh, like a cardio exorcism. Evil spirits, be gone. Oh, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Get out of this house. And then like burpees. And then drop for burpees. Like, but all.
When he gets like caught up on like his robe because it's so flowy while he's doing burpees, and he falls down and he smashes his face and he offers his nose blood up to the spirit.
It's all part of the ritual.
Oh my God. Okay, let's take this seriously. Okay. Dear King and Queen of the Suck and Masters of the Scare. My cousin turned me onto Time Suck, and now I listen religiously. Being a complete creeper, I had to listen to Scare to Death. It is by far my favorite podcast.
Yes.
Woohoo! You guys knock it out of the park, and the banter is amazing. That's so nice. Now, let's get to the story. The story sounds a little crazy, but it is 100% true. I can't express enough how much of a skeptic I was, and still kind of am. To put it bluntly, I listen to stories, and I'm like, you're full of shit. I'm a disabled veteran, and I was in the Army for 4 years and was medically discharged due to a traumatic brain injury.
Dang.
Because of the symptoms from that, I'm not able to live alone, mostly because of seizures. Due to that, when I got out, I stayed at my mom's house for about a year or so in northern Minnesota. My mom has been a police officer for over 20 years, and my now wife, then girlfriend, stayed with us as well, and she was going to school for forensic science. So needless to say, we're all logical and skeptical people. Also living there was my little brother, who is a senior in high school, and my little sister, who is a freshman. During my time there, my opinion on whether anything supernatural went from it's total bullshit to holy fuck, this shit actually happens. I passed out one night on the couch upstairs after a night of drinking a little too much. I woke up to a whisper in my ear, one so close I could feel the breath on my ear. It was the voice of a little girl saying, "She's coming, she's coming."
Ah.
I jumped up, and as I did, I heard small footsteps of someone running down the hall, but I saw absolutely nothing. I ran down the hall to try and catch this random little girl that should most definitely not be in my house. I found nothing. I'm a little freaked out, but I chalked it up to me having a bad dream and the booze making it feel way more real than it should have. But boy, was I wrong. After that stuff started to happen. I had an upstairs office right above my bedroom that was downstairs. I had gotten involved in a church and was taking classes to get my ministry license. I also loved to read, so I had a pretty big collection of books on a shelf. I also received a service dog at around this time. At night, I started hearing stuff falling upstairs in my office. My dog would growl, looking at the ceiling. In the morning, I would go up and find books all over the floor. Definitely seemed weird to me, but I just ignored it. This continued happening night after night. Eventually, it started to make me wonder if that little girl was more than a drunken dream. Soon to follow were even more dreams. The same dream every single night. In this dream, I would get up, get out of bed, walk to the door, and look down the hallway towards my brother and sister's rooms. At the end of the hallway would always be the same woman, who would be on all fours in a way that was definitely inhuman. This woman had long, dark black hair, her skin was decaying and almost transparent. She had long fingers and fingernails. Her eyes, pitch black, her teeth looked like someone had filed them to points. Jesus. At first, I would sit in the doorway while this thing sat at the end of the hall, staring at me. I wouldn't be able to move or scream. I was stuck staring right back at her. These dreams progressed, and as they did, she would slowly get closer and closer to me, until eventually I was paralyzed in bed while she was in the doorway, staring at me. I would try to move and put myself between her and my girlfriend. I would try to scream, but nothing would come out of my mouth. I could not wake my girlfriend or get my dog's attention. I was paralyzed while this crazy-looking bitch stared me down. I thought it was one of two things. 1, I needed to go to a psych ward. Or 2, she was real. Either way, I was freaking out. Then one night, my dog started losing his mind, growling, barking, and somehow sounding mean and terrified at the same time. I ran to find him backed into a corner, his hair on end, just going nuts. He looked like something had backed him into that corner and had him trapped there. I was able to calm him down, and after this, I decided that thing was real. I decided it was time to talk to my girlfriend, describing the woman in exact detail before I ever had the chance to share the description. For me, the sentence is weird. I decided it was time to talk to my girlfriend, and she described the woman in exact detail before I ever had the chance to share my own description. For me, this completely confirmed that I was not crazy. She then started telling me that she was having dreams. We decided to tell the rest of the family to see if there were any other connections. My mom told me I was being a paranoid idiot and that this wasn't real and I needed to chill out. When I connected with my brother, he interrupted me just like my girlfriend had done. He had seen this lady in the corner of his room.
Oh my God.
Hanging from the ceiling. He described her exactly as we had also seen her. Our dreams grew collectively worse. She started standing over me in bed while reaching down to touch my arm. The touch turned into a scratch, and one scratch turned into many. 3 to be exact. 3 long lines of scratches on my arm. Like I said, I was studying to be a minister. I called my cousin who was also doing the classes. And then we called my pastor, seeking advice on how to handle this insane situation. My brother and I went through the house reading parts of the Bible that spoke of casting out demons. We did this over and over, and eventually, the dream stopped. I thought we were in the clear. Either this thing left, or doing this had just made me feel safe. My mom thought all of us were either insane, playing a joke on her, or that we were overacting, exaggerating, and being paranoid. Being a police officer, anything bad that happened, she attributed to people, not to the supernatural. One night, though, that all changed. As she left for work, she looked in the rearview mirror of her squad car as she pulled away from the house. She saw the woman standing in the window of my office. She freaked the fuck out. My brother and I did what we had done before, reading Bible verses throughout the house. We assumed the woman had moved on from us trying to attack our mom because she continually said she didn't believe while we put up a fight. A few weeks later, my mom saw her again. This time, she saw the woman outside of our house. This thing was walking down the driveway, leaving our house.
What?
And we never saw her again. I guess our fight against her had worked. Sincerely, your friends of the Suck and the Scare, Jordan at the Man Up podcast.
Oh, thanks, Jordan. That's a cool sounding podcast, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks. I always wonder what it's like to hear this all the time. I know people have different takes on it, of course, but I do feel compelled to say thanks for your service.
Always.
And that sacrifice with the injury and stuff, it's like, whew, it's heavy. It's heavy. And it sounds like a really good dude. Going to the ministry now. Sounds like a helper.
Yeah.
Wants to help people. Man,
a healer.
A healer. And that, that thing about I was thinking of Freddy Krueger randomly in the middle of that, because that was the whole Nightmare on Elm Street thing, was he comes to your dreams. That's where he gets you, and he shows up looking as he looks.
1, 2,
Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab a crucifix.
Oh, yeah.
7, 8, never stay up late. 9, 10, gonna... Oh, shit, I can't remember the last one.
9, 10, let's do it again.
But it's something
What's
about...
the 9, 10?
Dang it. Well, now I'm going to have to look it up.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay,
Yeah.
you look it up while the Freddy Krueger... I'm probably Joe's looking too, but...
The Freddy Krueger chant.
It's the Freddy Krueger. But anyway, that thing about he's seen it in his dream, then his girlfriend's seen it in her dream before he's told her about it, and then their brother is seeing it in his dream.
I know.
That just outside of anything else is so creepy. But then you add the mom at the end, seeing it in the window, then seeing it, outside the house, and this same figure, that is terrifying.
Terrifying.
No, thank you.
Oh my God, I'm trying to get
got it.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
Just 7, 8, gonna stay up late.
Gonna
You
stay
gotta
up late.
stay up late.
Oh, yeah,
Gotta
'cause you don't-
stay up late.
Yes,
So you don't
gotta
sleep.
stay up late.
And
And then 9, 10 is never sleep again.
Never sleep again. That
Or let's
makes
do it
sense.
again. Let's do it again. More of that. More
Thank
of
you,
that.
Joe.
Thank you, producer
Yeah,
Joe.
never sleep again. That's right, because that's where he gets you.
Every time.
Yeek. That was a really good story.
The thought of looking down the hallway and seeing this black, decaying, creepy, long-fingered lady
Lady creature.
looking at you.
On all fours in an unnatural way.
What is it about that all fours position that immediately
creepy.
you're like, ah. Oh my God, that was so funny. That video that you showed me of that
What
kid
video?
freaking out his dad.
Oh, that was good.
It was so funny. It was like, I don't know, it if it was a office or if it was their house. I think it was a place of work.
It was like a place of work. It looked like a school, I thought maybe even, or like a church or something.
God, it was so
But
funny.
it was, and I think, I can't remember the channel, but it was, I think from TikTok, but anyway, on Instagram, I follow this channel. I think it's like Boozy Betch, Betch.
Betches.
Boozy Betches, or it's something like that. And it's a very popular channel. And they just have like really funny, random things. And this was a rare, like scary one. But yeah, this prank was, and it was so good. They'd set a camera up at the end of a long hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dad, and it seemed very genuine. It seemed like the dad, someone, I don't know, around 40-ish, probably didn't know or didn't even know the camera's there. And he's like checking all the rooms in this hallway.
Yeah, it's like one hallway and there's 4 rooms.
Yeah, it looked like almost like a junior high or a schoolhouse or something.
Right.
And he's making sure that there's no one in the rooms, turning off the lights, moving down the hallway, but just doing room after room after room.
Right. Left, right, left, right.
And there's about like 4 little sets of doors down this hallway. And when he gets past the third one, before he gets to the last one, you see it turns out it was this kid. But it is so creepy. He's turning off all the lights. So in the shadows, he did that crab walk where you're like walking on your hands and feet, but like going backwards.
Yeah, so the dad is like here,
Your
and the
stomach's
kid
up.
does it like from this room to this room
Yeah,
behind
shoots across the
dad.
hallway. Pretty fast too.
Yeah, he was really fast.
And then you could tell the dad just saw this kid shoot past in the corner of his eye.
It was like he just saw something. He was like,
movement.
Yeah,
It looks like, what the hell? And then, so he walks further down the hallway and he's like a little bit, weirded out. Turns off the last 2 rooms' lights, and then that kid shoots back across the hall.
just regular running.
Yeah, regular running. And now, but again, out of his corner of his eye, now he can tell he's jumpy. So now he goes and turns on all the lights to see if what's going on. Can't find anything. Starts heading back down the hall, and his kid runs out and starts to chase him. And he just just runs in pure terror down the hall. Oh, it was such a well done prank.
Oh god, it was so good. It made me so happy. I was imagining that in a not funny, very terrifying way when it came to this lady.
Yeah. Yee.
Chihuahua. Do you want to go to Ohio?
Yeah, I love Ohio.
Ohio's for lovers.
Ohio's for lovers. Let's go.
I don't know if you know that, but okay, so this couple, they live behind, upstairs behind a bar.
By the bar, yeah.
Yeah, like a family owned thing, and they're definitely hearing some stuff. And I think, based on the story, they caught something.
Okay.
Caught confirmation of something. Not we caught it. It's
Right.
ours now. We own it. Hey guys, new follower to the podcast and absolutely love it. Huge fan, and have also gotten my husband and 11-year-old daughter turned on to it. We've been playing it in the car when we have to go any sort of distance.
Oh, fun.
My story comes from an old house I lived in back in 2005, 2006 in the middle of nowhere, Northeast Ohio. I'd recently moved in with my then boyfriend, and our apartment was the back half of an old house. The front half was a bar, which his mother owned. The house had been renovated, and the staircase to the bar's upstairs loft was right behind our living room wall. It was used for storage, and rarely anyone ever used those stairs.
Gotcha.
One night, while I was sitting at home watching TV, I started hearing footsteps on the stairs. I didn't think much of it at the time, but then they continued, up and down, for most of the night. I asked my boyfriend when he got home from working in the bar why he'd been going upstairs so much that night, and his response? I wasn't upstairs at all. Okay, creepy. But I moved on. A few nights later, after the bar was closed and no one was there, I started hearing clattering in the bar kitchen. It sounded like cabinets were opening and closing, dishes clanking. I called and asked my boyfriend if anyone was there, and he said no. These occurrences continued for quite a while. I would always have the feeling that I was being watched when I was home alone, constantly seeing something just out of the corner of my eye, but never catching it. Our doorbell started randomly going off, several times in the middle of the night when no one was ever there. After several times of this happening, I noticed that the sound the doorbell made was somehow different. I thought maybe there was a short in a wire, but it was a wireless doorbell set. We were fans of the show Ghost Hunters, and it inspired us one night. My boyfriend and his friends decided to go into the bar after it was closed with voice recorders. I sat listening to the recordings, and what I heard still gives me chills to this day, nearly 20 years later. You can hear them talking and say that they are setting a recorder on the pool table while they go downstairs to investigate. Their voices drift away as they leave the room, and then silence. And then a few moments later, I could hear the distinctive sound of pool balls clinking together and a deep, breathy, no.
Ugh. Yee, why?
They kind of jokingly asked, "Who keeps ringing Eddie's doorbell?" And almost immediately, a friendly, childlike voice piped up and said, "Frank!" They all said they didn't hear anything when this happened, though. It was only caught on tape. To this day, I have no idea who Frank was, but I did find out that there were more than a few deaths in that building over the years, and that my boyfriend's mom had also had some paranormal experiences. One story in particular always stuck with me. She'd been cleaning at the end of the night and put all the bar stools up on the bar. She went to the bathroom to clean, and when she came back out, one of the bar stools was back down. Nothing ever seemed malicious, but it was just enough to put me on high alert, especially when I was home alone. Melanie.
Thanks, Melanie.
Melanie.
Oh my God, that last thing about the bar stool reminded me. Sometimes they're like, I'll go to like different like little like ghost story forums to see what people are talking about and making claims about. To like look for stories. And this one I go to a lot. I can't remember that. I feel bad. I have it bookmarked, a bunch of these, so I don't remember like the actual handle, the web address.
Sure.
I think it's yourghoststories.com or something. But anyway, they had a video section, and I've never looked at like the video section before. And there was this compilation of proof. It freaked me the fuck out. And there was like, they even said in the video disclaimers, like on their site, they're like, we're not saying all this stuff is true. It could be like hoax, some of it, but it's like but a lot of them like, man, they were like very good at that combination of crappy video, but really good CGI.
Yeah.
Or you're seeing something. And some of the ones that would get me were just like, a camera, like they've been having problems in this room and they would just let the camera stand there.
Oh, yeah.
And this one in particular, just things kept shooting around the room in the weirdest ways. And then the camera would like float and then like get knocked down. It was creepy. They either were like the really good at pulling off a hoax or something was going on. And there were so many compilations and there was like weird faces and windows and stuff.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you.
Hey.
I forgot that I have a third story.
Oh, you're a liar.
I tricked you.
You said you made a big deal out of having two stories. Okay. Another good one.
I remembered that like my middle story was a little bit on the shorter side. And so it's so tough because we do have so many short stories or so I'm like, oh, let's use some of them.
Okay.
Okay. So this story, as I'm like reading my recap, I'm like, oh yeah, these two teenage boys get to spend a weekend home alone. Like one, set of parents is out of town.
Yeah.
They go, best friend's house. They're going to spend the weekend and they taunt the neighbor.
Okay.
And
smart.
Doesn't really go well.
Okay.
And she's witchy. So like bad choice. But it made me remember, this is such a silly story. My childhood best friend, Beth Lorenz. Okay. I lived here. We lived on Crenshaw. I lived here. And she lived like kitty corner. Like I could see her house. Okay. Yeah. And we were together all of the time. And next to Beth lived this family and they had a son. And Tony was like, if we were in maybe like 5th or 6th grade, he was maybe like 20. But to us, he seemed like 25.
Sure.
And it was the 90s, and he had like the 90s hairband. And we thought he was so hot. He was so cool.
Hot Tony.
And so Beth would come over, and we would go in my bedroom.
And spy on Hot Tony.
Oh, it was better than that. So we could he would be in his driveway washing his car.
Of course he was.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
And he would, we could peek out through the windows and we could see him. So what we would do in such an obnoxious way is we would take turns jumping up, Tony! And then dropping back down as if and we would just do this over and for hours.
And Tony loved it.
Half the times I don't think Tony could hear us because he also had his music blaring.
Okay, yeah.
And then in the backyard of Beth's house.
The Duran Duran was too loud.
Oh my God. Beth had they had the best tree for tree climbing. It was so great. We would climb up in there and sit in there for hours. But we could also spy on Tony from there as well. So sometimes he would also get his name called from the tree. This poor guy. But it made me think of that immediately when I told the story. I'm like, yeah, why do kids harass their neighbors?
I don't know, testing limits, testing boundaries. I used to love harassing neighbors.
Give us one neighbor harassment story.
Oh, I harassed the hell out of my neighbor, the Emerys, this family that lived next door to my mom and I for a while.
Okay.
And Paul was about my age, and I would taunt him all the time, from across the fence.
What would you do?
This is terrible. This was just to freak him out. But we didn't go to church, and his dad was a minister, and he was kind of very at that age, just well, you're going to, he would say,
you're going to go to hell.
Yep, you're going to go to hell.
Sure.
And so I would just feel it. I'm like, I know. because I worship the devil. and then that would like, and then he'd be like, be gone, Satan. Like he'd get all freaked out. And he had this little wooden sword that he was a weird kid.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, he was homeschooled. Not that all homeschoolers are weird, but a lot of them are. And he would taunt me with this wooden sword. And like one day, me and Johnny Pottinger, a friend of mine from across the street, were there, and Johnny just like grabbed his sword and ripped it out of his hands and set it against like a little rock and just broke it in half and handed the pieces back to him. And he cried and ran in his house.
Did you talk to him from the burning bush, or is that something that you did to Donna?
Burning bush, the roof.
Oh, the roof.
I pretended to be God from the roof. Yeah. And convinced her that she was hearing God.
Oh, God. So great. So great. All right. Well, let me tell you about these two boys and what happened that was not as comical when they harassed the neighbor. Hey, Dan and Lindsay, I hope all is well. I wanted to share a story of mine with you about a very weird and creepy haunting at a condo. In 2009, I was in high school where I met one of my really great friends, Chad. Chad and I had both been playing water polo together when we met and clicked immediately. During the summer, I would stay with him at his parents' condo almost every weekend to play video games and watch movies. One night, we were sharing scary stories when he mentioned that his condo was possibly haunted. He spoke about a woman who lived directly in front of his condo in the same complex. He said that he was certain she's a witch. He said that he would smell weird, rotten smells emanating from her house when he would walk by, and at night he would hear banging and scratching coming from her house. At first, I thought he was trying to scare me until I heard the noises myself that night around 3 a.m. A few months later, it was Halloween night. I was at his condo to stay up and watch our annual Tim Burton marathon. His parents were gone for the weekend, and we were in his room when we heard some people talking outside his window. We quietly peeked outside to see the woman greeting 5 or 6 other people who were dressed in dark clothing. We could see through her windows that she had a bunch of lit candles on shelves and on the floor of her living room. When she closed the door, she had a pentagram displayed like a Christmas wreath on her front door. We thought nothing of it because, well, it was Halloween. We went back to watching our movies when we heard chanting coming from across the street. Her house was very dark except for the glowing candles. We were busted. We had both been seen watching them from the window. Not long after that, a woman walked out the front door and stared directly up at us. We were both a bit nervous, but being stupid high school kids, my buddy yelled out to her, "What the fuck are you freaks doing?" The woman then pointed up at us, growled,
What? Growled?
and ran back inside. We fell back laughing about how crazy she was. About 3 a.m. in the morning, we were up playing video games when his TV started to flicker. There was a storm coming that night, so we thought maybe the electricity in the air was causing the screen to lose power. All of a sudden, the entire complex lost power. Everything was quiet, except for thunder rolling in the distance. We looked outside his window to see that the whole complex was dark, except for the candlelit house of the witch. As we were looking outside, we heard the sound of a chair moving downstairs. We thought maybe his parents had come home early. We opened his bedroom door, and as we stepped into the hallway, we could hear walking around downstairs. I yelled, "Who's down there?" No response. Then I heard loud banging coming up the first couple of stairs, followed by a huge wave of cold air barreling down the hallway. We slammed his door shut and shoved a chair under the door handle to lock us in out of fear. We were pacing the room back and forth, panicking, when Chad said, "Bro, outside." I looked outside to see the witch and her guests lined up in front of her house, looking up at our window, smiling at us.
Oh my God.
Chad grabbed his phone and called the police. When the police arrived, they found the witch's condo was unlocked and no one was inside. The candles were burnt out, and the only thing left was the smell of rot. Aaron.
What? No one there?
No one there.
I did not expect that at the end.
Like, why would they not be there?
Right.
They didn't know the cops were called. And really, they didn't do anything wrong.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, I can't even believe the cops came out.
Right. I mean, yeah, they just scared him.
Our cops would be like, okay.
Yeah, well, good luck with those demons.
Yeah, like, why? Okay, so you're taunting your neighbor?
We're not the Ghostbusters.
Right. And your neighbor is staring at your window? Okay. I guess maybe they said, like, we think there's someone in our house. I'm guessing that's probably how they got the cops there. But weird, right?
Yeah, super weird.
So maybe don't put mannequin faces in our windows to scare the neighbors?
Well, I don't know if those neighbors behind us are witchy, but who knows?
You don't know.
You don't know. One that he's not very friendly.
I feel like I saw BYU like
No, that was the
plate.
people. That was the people before them.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. We've had a lot of neighbors behind us.
That house is cursed.
That house is cursed. Well, we don't know if actually that old man that lived there. We don't know if he died there.
I think probably did.
I mean, he was old. He was like one of the last surviving people of the Chinese Death March. Remember?
The Bataan Death March, like World War II.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that. Yes.
I don't know which of our neighbors told us that, but
Yeah.
ever since he died, that house has not been able to keep a resident for
I know,
more than
it
a
is
couple.
weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
We should probably go over there.
The rest of the neighborhood has been pretty stable, but then that house is just cycling through people.
I know.
And they always seem weird.
They always seem weird. It
Yeah.
all started with Chuck. Anybody who listens to Dan's stand-up.
That's on that secret album, though.
Oh,
but yes.
It's on a secret album, and you can't hear it. But we had this crazy neighbor that lived behind us, Chuck, that would like just lose his mind over the strangest things, like having our patio light on, or our porch light on.
And I lost my mind on Chuck.
Yeah, it was great. Your dad
he
was
moved
super
out.
proud of you. And then there was the BYU family. And then
They
now
were
this
quiet,
family.
They were quiet and weird. And looked at the kids too much, I thought. I thought they had a weird fascination with the kids. It creeped me out. And then there was these new people who are just dicks.
I know, they're so rude. Even like the kids have had to go over there because like, a ball goes over the fence or whatever.
They're not friendly.
Not friendly. Like, okay.
Ay, ay, ay.
Do you want to go first or shall I?
I'll go first.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to thank the following Annabelles for supporting Scared to Death on Patreon. Jessica Scott, Sarah Hilton, Melanie MC Brerty.
McBrerty.
Yeah, or Mick. Oh, like Mick. Like, you know what? It was the MC. It's all caps. All these words are capitalized. So I'm used to seeing the little C. Yeah, Mick Brerty. Not
MC Brerty.
Not MC Brerty. But now, please, going forward, be known as MC Brerty.
Also, that's like your DJ name.
Yep. Megan White. Probably Weidenhammer. Joseph Solonka. Billy Jones. Benjamin Mueller. Daniel Duran. Tracy Judy, Paige. I wonder how often Tracy Judy gets called like Judy, or when you have like a last name's kind of like your first name. Paige, Maggie Drummerhauser, Alyssa J, Casey Armageddon, Bernadette Holmes, Emily Harrington, Jesse Emke, Shitty Boomba. It's SCHIDDY. Bumba. There's no way that's a birth name. Shitty Boomba.
Shitty Bamba.
Shitty Bumba.
Shitty Bamba.
Jamie Cohen, Anna Carey, Tara Durney, Allison Petroni, Caitlin Frazier, Brian Christensen, Brooke Delve, and James.
One of the names you said, I think last name was like Drooler, which made me think Bueller.
Me too.
Which made me think what you just told me, this fascinating thing that I did not know about Matthew Broderick. How he killed 2 people in Ireland.
Vehicular manslaughter, but yeah.
But he still killed them. And
Right,
no one ever talks about
in
that.
Northern Ireland. Yeah.
I didn't know about this.
Yeah, because you and Kyler thought I was just making up random. I'm like,
Which is something you do.
True. You brought up like Matthew Broderick. I'm like, do you know he's a murderer?
Kyler and I are sitting at the dinner table like, okay, sure.
No, but there was a weird case that the family was very not happy about many years ago. Driving on the wrong side of the road, caused an accident. 2 people died.
Who was he on a date with? Jennifer Grey?
He was with Jennifer Grey from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yeah.
And Dirty Dancing.
Well, he wasn't with her in Dirty Dancing, but she's from Dirty Dancing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what people know her from.
True.
I don't think anybody ever says like, oh, Jennifer Grey, I loved her in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
True.
Okay. I would like to thank the following Annabelles. Ray Riddle, Bryce Sanborn, Crystal Henson, Derek Johnson, Caitlin Engel, Katie Llewellyn, Tim Ashcraft, Marie Herrera, Sophia Nix, Steffi Daniels, Jackson Collins, Emma Williams, Joanne Villasana, Shaheen Christie, Andrea and Marcuccio Castellazzo. K, just the letter K.
Okay.
Stephanie Freund, Teresa Coltfelter, Whitney and Tate, Elizabeth Hissong, Sarah Knox, Emily Enbady, Tiffany Kaminskas, Jacqueline Hirsch, Paige Marie, and Jerry Cruz.
Okay.
Can I do some spoopy shout-outs?
Do some spoopy shout-outs.
I know last week we didn't do them because I got it all messed up. I apologize. Hopefully I've got it back on track now. Fingers crossed. To Aria Jade, a.k.a. Chucky's girlfriend from Mommy and Daddy's Doodle, happy birthday. To Harmony from Seth, happy 8-year anniversary to my smoking hot wife. How nice of a husband are you?
Nice.
Good job,
points
buddy.
there.
Good job. To Jess from Brittany, happy B-Day to my BFF. I love you, Snood. To John from Paige, happy B-Day and happy Valentine's Day. Love you. To Jennifer from your mom, Kim, happy belated B-Day to my amazing daughter and friend. And to Debbie from Pickle, happy birthday, Debbie. I just want you to know that Pickle emailed me in an ample amount of time, but then when I effed up the shout-outs, I missed that one, and so I'm sorry it's late. It's my fault, not Pickle.
Not Pickle.
Not Pickle. Pickle Nickel.
Well, thank you, Smoking Hot Wife.
Oh, look at you, taking a page from his book.
That's our show today. Thank you for the ratings and reviews lately, creeps and peepers. Anybody who is giving us those, the continued ratings and reviews greatly help us find new listeners. So appreciated. Thanks for continuing to send in your personal tales of terror to mystory@scaredtodeathpodcast.com. You can email us for everything else, info@scaredtodeathpodcast.com. Thanks to Logan Keith and Liz Hernandez for their work on social media, and to Logan again for running badmagicmerch.com. Thanks to Joe Paisley for producing and directing today, Zach Cohen for custom soundbed creation, Heather Rylander for organizing the My Story emails, and to book editor Drew Atana for helping format the listener stories you hear each week. Thanks to producer Sophie Evans for finding today's first story. I found my second one. Enjoy your nightmares, creeps, and peepers. Hope you were scared to death.
Bye.
If spirits threaten me in this place, fight water by water and fire by fire. Banish their souls into nothingness and remove their powers until the last trace. Let these evil beings flee through time and space. Evil may pass through, but has no home here within, scared to death.
Bad Magic Productions.